maybe because I did get involved with the Heard and Depp trial, because I watched a lot of the trial and I have strong opinions about that. Maybe that's why now Marilyn Manson and Evan Rachel Wood's situations caught my attention. It normally isn't something that comes into my realm, you know, this sort of thing. Not being a fan of Marilyn Manson, not being involved in that kind of pop culture or goth scene, etc. And I guess not having watched a lot of Evan Rachel Wood's work, although I thought at first, I don't even know who this person is, but I realise I have seen her in a few movies and she's super talented. Marilyn Manson and Johnny Depp, as you know, are friends, and people prefer at the moment to focus on Amber and Rachel knowing each other, and they think that that means there's, you know, this like-mindedness, but they don't apply it to Johnny and Marilyn. These sort of double standards or leaps in logic, if you will, you know, these willful leaps are really frustrating to me. Marilyn Manson, he's this goth, horror, shock, rocker. He has a persona, I guess, that is quite purposefully confronting, you know, with the eye contacts, the makeup, costumes, and everything that he brings aesthetically. You know, he's creating music that certain people can lock into and you know, feel like all their angst and pain is understood, you know, or all their, you know, nasty little thoughts and feelings are understood, and he gives people an outlet. I mean, in the way that, you know, heavy metal gives, you know, often young teenage men who have a lot of angst an outlet. They want to be able to feel and express that aggression that they're feeling through music. And he's quite a lot older than Evan Rachel Wood. I think she was 18 and he was 36 when they met in 2006. So he's probably mid-50s, she's mid-30s now. So she was a young Hollywood ingenue when they met. She had been probably working as a child actress and model, probably, I'm just guessing, with her mother for a manager for years even, before she met him. And she was in a film called 13, and in this film she was directed to do some very grown-up things, you know, things that you don't think necessarily a person of her age would be mentally ready for, you know. So acting in this very sexually sophisticated way beyond what, you know, someone is really able to process. You know, this is one of the things that make predatory relationships so prevalent and dangerous, is because bodies mature differently to minds, and dirty old men take advantage of this. But anywho, she was 14 when she made the movie 13. She was nominated for a Golden Globe for this movie. And, you know, she had to act out some explicit scenes that in her personal life she wasn't ready for the sake of this film with a 23-year-old man. And it really affected her. She was super uncomfortable. So she managed to compartmentalize it and really go with it. And she really brought it. And this created the situation for her where, you know, she's then considered the quintessential troubled teen actress, right? She can play these roles. So she was cast in Running with Scissors and Down in the Valley. She met Marilyn Manson at Chateau Marmont. It's such a cliche, isn't it? At a hotel, at a party at the hotel maybe. And he hit on her, and the rest is awful history. There's so many parallels with Johnny and Amber, really. You know, you've got this gross imbalance of power, this established man, perhaps at the very height of their success. And what are they looking for, you know? And just because a person seems worldly and sophisticated and willing doesn't mean you should. But I guess this is nature in a way. And yeah. So, you know, lots of parallels with Johnny and Amber. But let's just say quickly about Johnny and Amber. They are both toxic. Okay, Johnny and Amber are both toxic, and they created this very intense union and a destructive union. It's destroyed a lot, and mostly it's destroyed Amber. You don't have to like her. It's probably prudent to try to understand her. You know, she got involved with this powerful man, so he's got status, fame, you know, money. He's got contacts, and he's got achievements because of his talent, because of characters he creates. He's even though he's got matinee idol looks, he is freaking unable to play that kind of leading man role. Isn't it interesting? He has to bring out something extremely quirky from within, and he likes to delve in because maybe he gets to be himself. And you know, if you've tried to watch The Tourist, you'll know exactly what I mean. It's awkward. And Amber, it was, you know, I was talking about this with someone at work, and they put it in a way that I 100% agree with and feel myself. You know, she's acting from her mental health situation, whatever those personality disorders are, whatever she's living with. Okay, she's a person that lives and expresses through a disorder, very likely, and or two of them, whomever you believe. This is you know, this is a disability, if you will. It might help her in some regards, but it's mainly a hindrance to her life, and this is where she's operating from. Johnny is operating from an all-knowing, absolutely aware position. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's just smarter. I'm not saying she's not intelligent. She is intelligent. He's covert. He's manipulative. He fucked with her, right? He wanted something from her when he met her, and he did what Marilyn did to Evan. You know, they seduce, they love bomb, they test the waters. You know, I'm not saying I don't believe that Amber, I'm not, you know, not saying that she didn't abuse Johnny and that she wasn't a freaking living nightmare. I'm saying he's a nightmare too, and he was always jostling and maneuvering for what he wanted and for his own reasons, and he's covertly, he's good at it, and he's toxic, and he was in the power position. You know, when he says in those tapes, oh God, he makes my skin crawl. The times when he goes, are you done? You done? People don't see this for what it is, but anywho, this isn't a discussion per se about Amber and Johnny. So, Chateau Marmont, is that how you say it? At the time, Evan Rachel Wood is allegedly in a relationship of some type with Edward Norton. People say because she had been with older men in the past that she must have been worldly, etc. Doesn't mean this at all. And you can be dating someone and you haven't slept with them. And why do you disbelieve this might be the case with Evan and Edward? I don't know. And Marilyn Manson, Brian Warner, was another sicko douchebag Brian, right? Was married to Dita von Teese, who's that burlesque artist. And, you know, an older, sharper, more in control, more fully formed woman. She thought she could change Marilyn. Of course, you can't change people. You know, that whole love of a good woman, settle them down. And, you know, and she left him because of infidelity and his drug use. She left and she didn't go back for things, and I'll talk about something to do with that later. She divorced him, I think, in 2007 sometime. So after Evan and Marilyn had been together for maybe a couple of years, had made some music videos, very specifically heart-shaped glasses. And this, you know, a lot of, it's, okay, so there's a lot of channels been talking about this situation, and they take different angles. They're not sitting on the fence as would maybe be prudent to do. And I am sitting on the fence, but I just want to bring up a few things because I think discussing things as a devil's advocate, so to speak, helps you discover new things or discard things. Okay, it helps you pick through things. If you don't do this as an exercise, it's a half-assed exercise. One of these YouTubers, a female, has done nothing for the last year on YouTube. It appears superficially. I mean, she does a lot. She's got 77,000 followers, something like that. She works very hard at it. I would imagine. And she interviews people to do with Marilyn Manson's situation. But, you know, for the last year, her content's mainly, from what I can see, blasting Amber and blasting Evan Rachel Wood. And sometimes just appears like she's a female misogynist, but that's just my opinion. She says, well, Evan Rachel Woods, for example, tries to tell us she didn't realize that Marilyn Manson's drug issue was so severe. But, you know, he puts it in his songs, it's in his lyrics, it's in his videos. So how could she not know? What a liar. She doesn't understand what she's saying, right? This is just the most pathetic thing to me because, okay, so on one hand, she's saying, well, he shows you that he's a cocaine fiend in the music videos, in his lyrics. But, he doesn't mean it about loving Hitler. He doesn't mean it about the sexual violence or that blood, the suicidal ideation, the murder fascination, self-harm. It's just all being an artist. It's all just being an artist. You know, this is just so, I don't get that. Oh, so we're supposed to just pick and choose and just know. We're supposed to know which is real, which is not, which is persona, you know, for the sake of art, and what's the real Brian. We're just supposed to somehow know what to believe to protect ourselves, or to believe and enjoy. It's so ludicrous. This person is ludicrous to me. And you know, he's this vampire thing, blood, vampirism. You know, both him and Johnny are clearly fascinated by it, but is it just, it's just a word plucked out of the ether? It just happens to be that word just for the Hollywood Vampires moniker for his band and that sort of thing. Wakey, wakey. Oh, it's just art. You know, so Marilyn Manson can say things like, I'm your vampire, you are the blood in my heart. And, you know, there's just lots and lots of gore and blood in his videos. I want to stay with you forever. You're so important to me. I want to kick you. You know, and knives and blood and death. You know, these are themes in the relationship of Johnny and Amber and Marilyn and Evan. But why is one thought of one way? What you know, I think you can follow these thoughts on, so I don't have to take too long here. I think you know what I mean, right? Now, a big part of this furor going on now, even against Marilyn, is that she's saying at 19, when they made the heart-shaped glasses video, there's many, this is a big part of her case. She's saying there's a couple of things really wrong with this. Now, this was a video concept, an art concept that, you know, they both worked on together. They discussed it as they would any project, just like, you know, talking about a movie, what the scenes are going to be, how it's going to look, how they're going to film it, what the end product's going to be, right? It was a job for her, even though they're together at this time. So she's 19, he's 37, and she says that, so this music video, okay, so it's she was styling herself very much in a Lolita-esque way at the time, you know, the Nabokov books, older man obsessed with 12-year-old girl, you know, and these heart-shaped glasses became just this iconic Lolita look. You know, they just represent something very specific about budding sexuality and seduction and men's fantasies. And she was very much into that styling. And in the music video, Marilyn's on stage performing the song, and she's coming in amongst all these women that are just being quite overtly sexual in see-through tops, and, you know, everyone's sort of dancing and being very, you know, 1990s Mardi Gras nightclub. She comes in this very prim dress, waisted, full skirt, and these heart-shaped glasses, and she's got red gloves on, and, you know, comes in, she walks, and she slides the gloves down, and, you know, she's in this Lolita, the Lolita heart-shaped glasses, grabbing her crotch, and very still, and this pin-up look, the pin-up look that Johnny Depp wanted for Amber in Rum Diaries. And in a way, you know, the red lipstick, this, you know, this young girl that can be seen as so in that full clear bloom, this glowing beautiful skin, blemish free, the red lips, this very particular American look. And there's a, you know, they're in a red convertible car at some point. That, you know, they're taking Polaroid photos of each other, they're performing sexual acts, they're driving very fast, there's blood everywhere, they're on what is allegedly Dita von Teese's actual bed. That's one of the things she didn't go back and get when she left Marilyn. I mean, why would you want to take the bed, I guess, that you've had with him? But it's just very sexual, very violent. They, you know, drive off a cliff or something, and it's just anarchy and nihilism, and it's, yeah, it's hard to explain. You have to watch it. And actually, you know, in the Rum Diaries, when, you know, there's a scene where Johnny and Amber are driving in this, I think it's a, is it a Corvette? Is it a Roadster? This red convertible, and, you know, Amber puts her hand, you know, character Chevelle or whatever she's playing, puts her hand on Kemp's leg and pushes his leg down. And she's in the red lipstick, the red dress, you know. I just feel like that's Johnny. I feel like he's, through styling and through getting Amber to do certain things in the scene and everything, I feel like it's his sly little nod to heart-shaped glasses. I can't, you know, it's like the sick boys club. There's you know, that there's all these private jokes going on, right? And no one will believe it. Okay, I'm not saying that it's just an idea. So in the filming of this, though, Evan says, look, you know, Marilyn penetrated her. Now, I don't know if she means digitally or other. And she says, you know, people on set knew some of them and they were uncomfortable, but it went forward, you know. But of course, it's all these very dark shots, and it would have been filmed over a very long period of time. But the thing is, she says, you know, and at the time, she'd been drawn into the world of drinking absinthe, you know, taking drugs and drinking. She was intoxicated and therefore not able to consent. And, you know, as a 19-year-old, the drinking age is 21, so it's illegal. And so then she's, you know, under the influence performing a commercial sex act, she says, right? Now, I don't know if, I really tend to believe it's true. At the time, she says, you know, the video, especially when the blood's falling down on them, and, you know, she says it was the most romantic moment of her life. And a 19-year-old girl can feel like she's going to say that, and it can still be very traumatizing and not what people think, right? I don't think people try hard enough to get inside these relationships and what they're really like. So judgmental, and just without really being able to put yourself somewhere, right? And so it's hard to get this all out correctly. And Marilyn at the time, you know, he said, yeah, it did happen. Now he's just saying, no, of course not. And so now we believe him because, you know, so it just, people pick and choose what is, he's just creating myth. It's just all part of the shtick. And then they choose when to discard it or disbelieve something as well. So random. It makes no sense to me that people do this like this, right? But always, as long as it shows Evan Rachel Wood to be the bad girl and this big bad wolf is just, you know, meh, right? It's a crock of shit. So she says she was coerced into that. She didn't know it was going to happen. And of course, she made these pronouncements of how romantic it was at the time, but no, it wasn't. God, sorry, I'm taking too long to get through a few of the little things I wanted to talk about. There's so many angles I'd like to discuss, I guess. But in some ways, it would be easier just to pick a tiny little thread of topic and then have conversation here in a live or something. Yeah, so one of the things that Rachel Evans would is she produced a film called Phoenix Rising. It's probably going to get really panned. Maybe HBO or whatever won't even play it. But she, as part of this process of coming forward and saying the person who she was talking about yet. So what, I don't really know much about this properly, but apparently years ago she, she's come forward. She's starting speaking in to committees or in Senate or whatever, started speaking to try to help change the statute of limitations so that you can report abuse. Now, maybe this is because she wanted to do this so that she could come forward about Marilyn Manson. I don't know, but she's trying to make it a better situation for victims so that they can report past abuse. They've got longer to do so, not 7 years, but maybe 10 years or a dozen years to come forward. Okay. I mean, Marilyn Manson even himself mentions the statute of limitations and in quite a really strange, queer, cocky, worrisome way. Yeah. And, people are going to throw things in her face, like where she said, oh, the relationship was stable. It was a good relationship. She was free within it. I just don't believe it. So quickly, okay, so there is, on this channel that I mentioned, this woman that for the last years kind of made a YouTube career out of bashing Evan Rachel Wood and Amber Heard. She interviews a couple of different women. One woman is a Hungarian who 10 years ago, this is her, 10 years ago, she went to Vienna to meet up with Marilyn Manson. She was a fan, and he was in Austria filming as a judge on X Factor. Now, people say, what's the big deal about Austria? Why do you scoff at that? Why do you mock that? Because we're supposed to ignore all his fascination with Adolf Hitler, but the X Factor that he goes and appears on is in Austria, where Hitler was born. I just find that funny and kind of creepy. I don't know. I mean, a lot of rock stars, music stars, they go to different countries other than their own to be guest judges or judges on X-Files, X Factor, I mean. But Austria, out of all places that have this show, I found that quite just a little curious. And this woman, one of her names she goes by is Greta. And she even embarrassingly quotes Greta Thunberg. How dare you? So she's a woman that likes to think of herself as empowered, and because she was strong, and open-minded, she's not going to be abused. But she later goes on to say that actually she's been a victim now of psychological abuse. She's come out to speak against Evan and for Marilyn, and she says she spent this weekend with him in Austria. So she travelled from her country. She's 19 years old. She's a virgin, but worldly and curious. And she thinks, well, if it's going to happen with someone, why not Marilyn Manson, right? And they meet at his hotel. His publicist is there. His publicist is someone who's now speaking up against him, but you know, people are trashing that because one of the things that she is citing is she tried to get this Greta lady on board to come out against Marilyn Manson, and she doesn't want to because she says nothing happens, and that's probably the case, and I'm going to tell you why. So they meet, they talk for a few hours, the three of them, and then the publicist leaves, and the girl, because Marilyn Manson is a little shy or not being overt, she makes a move on him, and then he becomes more assertive. They begin to have a sexual interaction, and during this he's biting her on the neck, and at first she kind of digs it, and then suddenly she doesn't because he does it too hard, and she bites him back, presumably very hard enough to make him stop, and then he didn't do it again for the whole weekend, and nothing else, you know, uncomfortable happens apparently, right? They just have dinner later with the publicist. Maybe the next day she's called up again, and they hang out, and then they have another sexual encounter, which she says is again very enjoyable, and then goodbye, right? So he had been communicating with the publicist that he enjoys this encounter. He liked having a virgin. Apparently she was his first virgin 10 years ago. This was, I don't know if I believe that, but anyway. And you know, she says, because, you know, women, now this is true, I mean, women need to still, no means no, but you need to say it. It's so awful, though, that there's the assumption that you're always able to say it. If you're inebriated, you can't say it. You can't say it if something's shoved in your throat. You can't say it in lots of situations. Or maybe you say it, but yeah, they don't. They kind of, look, let's not go down that track. Normal, sane, intelligent, compassionate, empathetic people will understand what I mean, you know. So she says, you know, that the experience was fine. I can't believe Evan at all, because this guy was just shy and nice, and he was a gentleman. He asked me, he was always concerned about me. Did I have enough to eat? Did I want something to eat? Oh, God, she makes me sick. What I don't think she realizes is maybe he's testing the waters. Well, you know, number one, he's working in another country for work. You know, she's a sexual encounter. She's fulfilling a need.